Calyx stood in the docking bay of the human vessel and tried not to show his disappointment. The ship was called Defiant Spirit, and it looked exactly like what he expected from a young species. The walls were plain metal. The floor had scuff marks. Everything seemed functional but not elegant. His own people, the Velkari, had been traveling the stars for over 50,000 years. Their ships were works of art, with flowing designs and crystalline corridors. This human ship looked like it was built in a hurry. A human approached him. The man was tall with short dark hair and wore a dark blue uniform. His face had lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he was not smiling now. He extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. "Welcome aboard," the man said. "I'm Captain Nathan Cross. We're glad to have you with us." Calyx touched the human's hand briefly. The gesture felt strange. His own species communicated through subtle color changes in their skin, not through physical contact. "I am Calyx of the Velkari Scholar Circle. The Galactic Council has assigned me to observe your operations." "We know," Nathan said. His tone was friendly, but there was something in his eyes that Calyx could not quite read. "Come on. I'll show you to your quarters and then give you a tour." As they walked through the corridors, Calyx took mental notes. Humans rushed past them, all focused on their tasks. They called out to each other, sometimes laughing, sometimes serious. It was noisy compared to the quiet efficiency of proper galactic vessels. On a Velkari ship, everyone communicated through their personal data terminals. There was no need for all this shouting. "This is Commander Lisa Martinez," Nathan said, introducing him to a woman with dark eyes and black hair pulled back tightly. She was studying a display screen on the wall. "She's my second in command." Lisa looked up and nodded at Calyx. "Welcome. Fair warning, things might get interesting out here. The frontier zone isn't exactly peaceful these days." "I have read the reports," Calyx said. "The Zrektar swarm has been expanding into this sector. Most species have chosen to relocate their colonies rather than engage in conflict." "Most species aren't us," Lisa said. She turned back to her screen. "Captain, we're getting updated readings from the frontier. The swarm has moved 3 more hive ships into the region." Nathan's expression grew serious. "How close to the colony on New Haven?" "Too close. Maybe 2 days." Calyx watched the exchange with interest. The humans seemed concerned about a colony world in the disputed zone. By galactic standards, the logical choice was clear. The colony was small, recently established, and in territory that the Zrektar had already claimed. Evacuation would be expensive but sensible. Fighting over it would cost more in ships and lives than the colony was worth. Nathan touched a panel on the wall. "All senior staff report to the briefing room in 10 minutes. They continued the tour. Calyx saw the medical bay, where a woman with red hair was organizing supplies. Nathan introduced her as Dr. Amy Sullivan. She barely looked up, too focused on her work. "Preparing for something?" Calyx asked. "Always prepared," Amy said. "Out here you never know what's coming." The weapons control room was next. A young man with sandy hair was running diagnostics on the ship's systems. "Lieutenant Kyle Bennett," Nathan explained. The lieutenant was younger than Calyx expected for someone controlling such destructive capability. "How old are you?" Calyx asked. Among his people, weapons officers trained for decades before being trusted with a ship's armaments. 26, Kyle said. "Been in the fleet for 8 years. You began military training at 18? Calyx calculated quickly. That was barely an adult by galactic standards. "Joined up right after school," Kyle said with a slight smile. "Seemed like the right thing to do." The briefing room was larger than Calyx expected. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs. Screens covered the walls, displaying star charts and tactical data. One by one, the senior staff arrived. Calyx was introduced to Chief Engineer Katie Morgan, a woman with grease stains on her uniform who spoke quickly about engine efficiency. There was Pilot Danny Hayes, who looked too relaxed for someone who flew combat missions. Sergeant Nicole Brooks from the Marine Detachment arrived last, her military bearing unmistakable. Nathan stood at the head of the table. "All right, here's the situation. New Haven Colony is reporting increased Zrektar activity in their system. They've got 40,000 civilians down there, including families. The swarm is positioning for either an invasion or a blockade. Council protocol suggests immediate evacuation," Calyx offered. He thought it was helpful to mention the established procedure. Everyone turned to look at him. The silence stretched for a moment too long. "We don't abandon our people," Lisa said quietly. That's not how we operate. But the tactical situation is unfavorable, Calyx continued. The Zrektar have numerical superiority. By galactic military doctrine, you should withdraw and file a formal complaint with the Council. They will mediate. Mediation takes months, Nathan said. Those people don't have months. They have days, maybe hours. That is unfortunate, but the cost of military engagement would be not a factor, Nathan interrupted. His voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. We're going to New Haven. We're going to defend that colony, period. Calyx felt confused. This was not logical. The humans would be risking their ship, their lives, and their diplomatic standing for a colony that could be rebuilt elsewhere. The Council had established protocols for exactly these situations. Emotional attachment to specific locations was considered a primitive trait that most species had evolved past. I do not understand, Calyx said. Your attachment to this colony is not rational. Katie leaned forward. It's not about the colony. It's about the people. Every single one of them matters. But the mathematics of the situation— We don't do math on human lives, Danny interrupted. That's not who we are. The meeting continued with tactical planning. Calyx listened but could not fully grasp their strategy. The humans were planning to engage a superior force to defend a position of marginal strategic value. They discussed battle formations, supply lines, and evacuation routes with grim determination. No one suggested retreat. No one calculated acceptable losses. They talked about saving everyone. After the meeting, Calyx was shown to his quarters. The room was small but functional. He sat at the desk and began his first report to the Council. His fingers moved over his data terminal, translating his thoughts into the formal language of scholarly observation. Subject species displays concerning attachment to individual colonists, he wrote. Decision-making process appears compromised by emotional factors. Recommend continued observation to determine if this is cultural aberration or species-wide trait. Probability of mission success, low. Probability of unnecessary casualties, high. He paused, thinking about the humans he had met. They seemed competent in their roles. Their ship was well maintained despite its plain appearance. But their emotional response to the crisis troubled him. In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, species had learned that survival required cold calculation. Emotions led to mistakes. Attachment led to poor choices. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Amy standing there with a tray. Thought you might be hungry, she said. First day on a new ship can be disorienting. Calyx looked at the food. It was simple but smelled pleasant. Thank you. This was not necessary. Maybe not, but it's what we do. Amy set the tray down. You think we're crazy, don't you? Going to defend New Haven. I think you are following your nature, Calyx said carefully. But yes, by galactic standards, this decision is highly irregular. Amy smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. Let me tell you something about humans. We've been fighting since we climbed down from the trees. We fought nature. We fought each other. We fought diseases, disasters, and our own worst impulses. And you know what we learned. Calyx waited. We learned that when you leave someone behind, you lose a piece of yourself. We learned that the things worth having are worth fighting for. And we learned that sometimes you have to stand up even when the odds are bad, because not standing up is worse. That is a very emotional perspective, Calyx observed. Yeah, it is. Amy moved toward the door. But emotions aren't weakness. They're what make us strong. You'll see. After she left, Calyx ate the food slowly. It was well prepared, with flavors that were foreign but not unpleasant. He thought about Amy's words. Among his people, emotions had been genetically moderated centuries ago. They could still feel, but those feelings were muted, controllable. It made for stable societies and rational decision-making. But watching the humans, he saw something different. Their emotions were raw and powerful. They laughed loudly. They argued passionately. And they made decisions based on feelings as much as facts. The ship's engines hummed to life. They were leaving the station, heading toward the frontier, toward danger, toward a battle they might not win. Calyx returned to his terminal and added a note to his report. Humans display remarkable conviction in their choices, even when those choices defy logic. Further observation required to understand if this conviction is sustainable in actual combat conditions. Personal prediction, they will. The defiant spirit reached New Haven Colony 2 days later. Kalix stood on the bridge watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the view screen. It looked peaceful from space. Clouds drifted across oceans. Cities glowed like small lights on the night side. 40,000 humans lived down there, building their lives on a world that had been empty just 10 years ago. Status report, Nathan said from his command chair. No sign of Zrektar ships in the immediate area, Lisa reported from her station. But we're picking up some strange readings from the outer system. Could be interference, could be cloaked vessels. Stay alert, Nathan ordered. Kyle, keep weapons ready, but don't power them up yet. No point in looking aggressive if we don't have to. Kalix noted this decision. The humans were being cautious, trying to avoid conflict. Perhaps they were more sensible than he had thought. Perhaps this would end peacefully after all. The communications officer, a young woman named Beth Parker, suddenly sat up straight. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the colony. They're under attack. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Everyone moved to their stations, fingers flying over controls. Nathan stood up, his face calm but his eyes intense. Put it on speaker, he commanded. The voice that came through was broken by static and explosions. This is New Haven Colony to any ships in range. We are under attack by Zrektar ground forces. They came out of nowhere. Repeat, we are under attack. Heavy casualties. Requesting immediate assistance. How did they get ground forces down there without us seeing their ships? Lisa demanded. They must have been here for days hiding, Danny said from the pilot station. Waiting for us to show up. It's a trap, Kalix said. They want you to commit to the planet so they can destroy you from orbit. Nathan looked at him for a moment, then turned back to his crew. He's probably right. This is a trap. But that doesn't change what we have to do. Lisa, get me a tactical assessment. Beth, tell the colony we're coming. Danny, take us in. Wait, Kalix said, his voice rising. You are still going? Even knowing it is a trap? Those are our people down there, Nathan said simply. We go. The ship surged forward, accelerating toward the planet. Alarms began to sound almost immediately. Ships appeared on the scanners, materializing out of the darkness of space. Zrektar vessels, dozens of them closing in from all directions. They were waiting. Kyle said. We've got at least 40 enemy ships. We're outnumbered 10-1. Then we better make every shot count, Nathan said. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat. Kalix gripped the railing near the back of the bridge. His hearts were beating faster. This was insane. The humans were flying directly into certain destruction. By every tactical calculation, they should retreat. They should call for reinforcements. They should save their ship and crew to fight another day. But they were not retreating. The first Zrektar ship opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the Defiant Spirit's shields. The ship shook but held steady. Kyle returned fire, his fingers dancing over his controls. A Zrektar vessel exploded in a bloom of light. Good shot, Nathan said calmly. Keep it up. More Zrektar ships attacked. The space around them became a web of energy weapons and explosions. Danny threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, spinning and diving in ways that made Kalix dizzy. Several times enemy fire passed so close that Kalix could see the weapons flash on the view screen. Shield strength at 60%, someone called out. Katie, I need those shields stable, Nathan said. Over the comm system, Katie's voice came back. I'm working miracles down here, Captain, but I can't change the laws of physics. These shields weren't meant to take this much punishment. Do your best. That's all I ask. Lisa was coordinating defensive positions with other human ships that had arrived. 3 more vessels had joined them, but they were still vastly outnumbered. Kalix watched the tactical display with growing horror. The humans were losing. They had to be losing. The mathematics was clear, yet they kept fighting. Captain, we've got a problem, Beth said. The colony is reporting that Zrektar forces have surrounded the main evacuation center. They've got 10,000 civilians trapped there. Nathan's jaw tightened. How long can they hold? Maybe an hour. Maybe less. Nicole, Nathan said into his comm, I need your Marines ready to deploy. We're going down there. We'll be ready. Nicole's voice came back, steady and determined. You cannot land on the planet, Kalix protested. You will be defenseless against the orbital fleet. That's why we're not leaving the ship here undefended, Nathan said. He turned to Lisa. You have the bridge. Keep these ships off our backs long enough for us to get those people out. Understood, Lisa said. Be careful down there. Nathan stood and headed for the door. He paused next to Calyx. You coming? What? No, I am an observer. I am not. Then stay here and observe. Lisa will keep you safe. Nathan left the bridge at a run. Calyx stood frozen for a moment, then made a decision that surprised himself. He followed Nathan. He did not know why. Perhaps he needed to see this up close. Perhaps he needed to understand what drove these humans to such recklessness. He caught up with Nathan at the armory. Marines were gearing up, checking weapons and armor. Nicole was giving orders, her voice sharp and clear. Amy was there too, loading medical supplies into packs. What are you doing here? Nathan asked when he saw Calyx. Observing, Calyx said. That is my purpose. Fine, but stay behind the Marines and do what they tell you. We don't have time to babysit. They boarded a landing craft. The interior was cramped and loud. 20 Marines, Nathan, Amy, and now Calyx. The craft launched from the ship and dove toward the planet. Through the small windows, Calyx could see enemy fire tracking them. Danny's voice came over the comm, coordinating with the landing craft pilot. I've got you covered, Danny said. Just get down there fast. The landing was rough. The craft hit the ground hard and the rear door dropped open. Nicole and her Marines rushed out, weapons ready. Calyx followed more slowly, his legs shaking. The evacuation center was under siege. Zrektar warriors, insect-like creatures with multiple limbs and armored carapaces, were pressing against makeshift barricades. Human colonists were fighting back with whatever they had, but they were not soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, families. Nicole's Marines hit the Zrektar from behind. The sound of gunfire was deafening. Calyx watched as Private Ryan Collins took up a position at a corner, his weapon firing in controlled bursts. A Zrektar warrior charged him and Ryan shot it down without flinching. Get the civilians to the landing craft, Nathan shouted. Amy was already moving toward the wounded, her medical scanner out. She knelt beside a man whose leg was bleeding badly. You're going to be okay, she told him. Just hold on. Calyx watched it all with wide eyes. The humans were fighting with incredible coordination. They covered each other, communicated constantly, and moved like they had trained together for years. Maybe they had, but what struck him most was how they protected the civilians. A Marine named Jake Morrison carried a child who could not walk, sprinting toward the landing craft while bullets flew around him. Nicole held a defensive position while families ran past her to safety. She took a hit to her armor that knocked her down, but she got back up and kept fighting. We need to go, the pilot shouted. The orbital situation is getting worse. Not without everyone, Nathan shouted back. He was helping an elderly woman toward the craft, his arm supporting her weight. More civilians poured into the landing craft. It was designed for 30 people. There had to be at least 60 crammed inside now. Still more were coming. Captain, we're over capacity, the pilot said. I don't care. Pack them in. A Zrektar warrior broke through the Marine line. It was heading straight for a group of children. Without thinking, Corporal Jake Morrison threw himself in front of them. The warrior's blade-like limb struck him and he went down. But he had bought enough time. Another Marine shot the warrior before it could hurt the children. Amy ran to Jake, her hands moving quickly over his injuries. Stay with me, she commanded. Don't you dare die on me. The last civilians were boarding. Nicole was counting heads, making sure everyone was accounted for. A little girl was crying, saying she could not find her mother. Nicole grabbed a private. Find that woman, now. The private ran back into the evacuation center. He came back a minute later, supporting a limping woman. The girl cried out and ran to her mother. Nicole physically lifted them both and pushed them into the craft. That's everyone, Nicole shouted. Go, go, go! The craft lifted off, overloaded and struggling. Through the window, Calyx could see Zrektar warriors firing at them. The craft's shields flickered. An alarm blared. But they made it into the air, climbing toward space. This is Defiant Spirit, Lisa's voice came over the comm. We see you. Coming to pick you up. The landing craft docked with the ship and the civilians spilled out into the landing bay. Medical teams were waiting. Amy was already barking orders, directing the wounded to treatment areas. The uninjured were being guided to safe zones deeper in the ship. Calyx stumbled out of the craft and leaned against a wall. His whole body was shaking. He had never been that close to combat before. He had Jay. 3 days had passed since the rescue mission. Calyx had barely slept. The Zrektar had not given up. Instead, they had brought more ships, more warriors, more weapons. The human fleet was now surrounded. New Haven colony was still down there, and there were still 30,000 civilians who had not been evacuated. The Defiant Spirit and 6 other human vessels formed a defensive sphere around the planet. Calyx stood on the bridge watching the tactical display with a sense of dread. Red markers showed Zrektar positions. There were hundreds of them now. Blue markers showed human ships, 7 against hundreds. The math was impossible. "They're trying to starve us out," Lisa said, studying the display. "They know we won't leave while there are still people on the planet. So they're just going to sit there and wait for us to run out of supplies or make a mistake." "How long can we hold?" Nathan asked. "Food, water, medical supplies? We're fine for weeks, maybe months. Weapons, power, shields?" She paused. "Maybe a week if we're lucky. We've been fighting nonstop. Everything is starting to break down." Katie's voice came through the comm. "Captain, I've got teams working around the clock, but we're running out of spare parts. I'm having to cannibalize non-essential systems just to keep the essential ones running." Nathan rubbed his face. He looked tired. Everyone looked tired. "Do what you have to do, Katie. We just need to hold out until reinforcements arrive." "Council reinforcements?" Calyx asked. "You requested council assistance?" "Of course we did," Nathan said. "We sent the call 3 days ago." "And have they responded?" Nathan's expression darkened. "They're deliberating. Apparently there's some debate about whether this situation requires military intervention or diplomatic negotiation." Calyx felt a flash of shame. His own people, the Velkari, were probably leading that deliberation. They would argue for caution, for careful consideration of all factors. They would take weeks to decide while humans died. "We might not have weeks," Lisa said quietly. An alarm sounded. "Contact!" Kyle shouted. "Zrektar fleet is moving. They're positioning for an assault." "All ships, defensive formation Delta," Nathan ordered. "Prepare for engagement." The bridge became a flurry of activity. Calyx moved to the back, trying to stay out of the way. He watched as the Zrektar ships advanced, a wave of red markers on the screen. They came in slowly, methodically, knowing they had the advantage. The battle that followed was brutal. The human ships fought with everything they had, but they were being overwhelmed. One human vessel, the Morning Star, took heavy damage and had to fall back. Another, the Resilient, was nearly destroyed when 3 Zrektar cruisers focused fire on it. "We can't keep this up," Lisa said, her voice strained. "We're losing." Nathan's face was grim. "Then we need to change the game. Get me all senior staff in the briefing room, now." 10 minutes later, they were gathered. Kyle, Danny, Katie, Nicole, Amy, and several others Calyx had not met before. Everyone looked exhausted. Lieutenant Ben Carter, a tactical officer, had burns on his hands from an electrical fire. He had refused to leave his post to get them treated. "All right," Nathan said. "We're losing. That's the truth. We can't win a straight fight. So we need to not fight straight. Ideas, anyone?" Silence for a moment. Then Ben spoke up. "The asteroid belt. The one between here and the outer system. What about it?" Lisa asked. "It's full of old mining equipment. Some of those asteroids still have explosive charges in them from when they were being mined. What if we lure the Zrektar fleet into the belt and detonate those charges?" "That's insane," someone said. "Those charges are decades old. We don't even know if they still work." "It's also brilliant," Katie said. "If we can get the Zrektar to chase us into the belt, we could create a debris field that would tear their fleet apart." "But how do we get them to follow us?" Danny asked. "They're content to sit and wait." Nicole leaned forward. "We give them something they want. Or someone. What if one of our ships makes a run for it, breaks through their line and heads for the belt? They'd have to chase. They can't let a human ship escape to bring back reinforcements." "That's a suicide mission," Amy said. "Whatever ship we send won't make it back." "Not if we plan it right," Ben said, getting excited now. "The ship doesn't have to survive. It just has to lead them into the belt and trigger the explosives. The crew could evacuate in escape pods before the ship is destroyed." Nathan looked around the table. "It's risky. It's probably crazy. But it's the best idea we've got." "Who volunteers?" "My ship," a voice said. Captain Sam Hughes of the vessel Pathfinder stood up. "We've taken the most damage. We're barely combat effective anyway. Let us do this." "Sam, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. My crew, my choice. We all volunteered for this. Let us finish the job." The meeting continued, working out details. Calyx listened in amazement. The humans were planning to sacrifice a ship and risk their lives on ancient mining explosives that might not even work. It was desperate. It was insane. It was also the only chance they had. 2 hours later, the plan was ready. The Pathfinder would make a run for the asteroid belt, broadcasting fake distress signals to make it look like they were trying to escape. The other human ships would provide covering fire but then fail to stop the Zrektar from pursuing. Once in the belt, the Pathfinder would trigger the old mining charges using a virus Katie had created. The explosions would destroy the Zrektar fleet, or at least enough of it to even the odds. Calyx found himself on the bridge again as the plan began. He watched the Pathfinder break formation and accelerate away from the planet. Immediately, the Zrektar fleet responded. Dozens of ships turned to pursue. "They're taking the bait," Lisa said. The human ships opened fire, but their shots were deliberately inaccurate. They were putting on a show, making it look like they were trying and failing to stop the Zrektar. It had to look real. "Pathfinder is entering the asteroid belt," Beth reported. "Zrektar fleet is following. They're really committed to this pursuit." Danny was piloting the Defiant Spirit closer to the belt, ready to provide support if needed. Calyx could see the asteroids on the view screen, massive rocks tumbling through space. Some of them still had old mining equipment attached, relics from when humans had first colonized the system. "Pathfinder crew is evacuating," Beth said. "Escape pods are launching." On the screen, small pods shot away from the Pathfinder. The ship itself continued on autopilot, leading the Zrektar deeper into the belt. "Katie, you're up," Nathan said. Katie's fingers flew over her console. She was sending the virus to the old mining systems, trying to wake up charges that had been dormant for decades. "Come on," she muttered. "Work, please work." Nothing happened. The Zrektar were closing in on the Pathfinder. "They would destroy it any second, Katie." Nathan said, "I'm trying. These systems are old. I need more time." They did not have more time. A Zrektar cruiser fired on the Pathfinder. The ship's shields failed. Another hit and the Pathfinder's hull breached. "No," Sam's voice came over the comm from his escape pod. "Come on, work." And then it did. An asteroid exploded, sending fragments flying in all directions. Then another, and another. The asteroid belt became a storm of rock and metal, all of it tearing through the Zrektar fleet. Ships were torn apart. Explosions lit up space like a chain reaction. The bridge erupted in cheers. Kyle was laughing. Danny was shouting something incomprehensible. Even Lisa was smiling. "Did it work?" Katie asked over the comm. "Please tell me it worked." "It worked," Nathan said, grinning. "You magnificent crazy people." It actually worked. The Zrektar fleet was in chaos. More than half their ships were destroyed or damaged. The survivors were retreating, pulling back from the belt and from the planet. "All ships advance," Nathan ordered. "Press the attack." "Don't let them regroup." The human ships surged forward. Now it was the Zrektar who were outnumbered. Now it was the Zrektar who were desperate. Calyx watched in stunned silence. The humans had been losing. They had been outmatched, outgunned, and surrounded. By every calculation, they should have been destroyed. But they had refused to accept defeat. They had improvised. They had risked everything on a crazy plan that should not have worked. And it had worked. The battle was not over. The remaining Zrektar ships were still dangerous, but the tide had turned. The humans were winning. Hours later, the last Zrektar ship retreated. The space around New Haven was clear. Down on the planet, colonists were cheering, sending messages of thanks and celebration. The Pathfinder's crew was being picked up, safe in their escape pods. No one had died. Nathan stood on the bridge looking at the view screen. New Haven hung there, peaceful and beautiful. 40,000 lives saved. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen, Lisa said. And I've seen a lot of crazy things. Did we have a choice? Nathan asked. No. But most species would have found a different way, a safer way. A way that involved leaving people behind. Yeah. Calyx approached them slowly. Both humans turned to look at him. He did not know what to say. Everything he had learned, everything he thought he understood about warfare and tactics had been challenged in the past few days. You should not have won, he said finally. By every calculation, every tactical analysis, you should have lost. Probably, Nathan agreed. But we didn't. How? How do you do this? Nathan thought for a moment. Because we don't think about the odds. The days following the battle were quieter. The Zrektar had pulled back to regroup, and council reinforcements were finally on their way. The Defiant Spirit was in repair mode. Everywhere Calyx looked, he saw humans working, fixing damaged systems, tending to the wounded, cleaning up the mess that war always left behind. But there was something else too. Something that caught Calic's attention. In the mess hall there was a wall with pictures on it. Faces of humans. Below each picture was a name, an age, and a date. He studied them carefully, counting. 19 faces. 19 humans who had died in the battle. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned to find Amy standing there, her eyes red like she had been crying. "Those are the ones we lost," she said quietly. "We always remember them. Every single one. 19 deaths to save 40,000, Calic said. "By military calculations, that is an excellent ratio." Amy's face hardened. "They're not numbers. They're people." Private Ryan Collins loved old movies. Corporal Jake Morrison was going to be a father. Each one of them had a life, had people who loved them, had dreams. She paused, her voice breaking. "We don't measure success by ratios. We measure it by how many we saved and how we honor the ones we couldn't." She walked away, leaving Calic standing alone before the wall of faces. He looked at each picture again, trying to see them as people instead of casualties. It was difficult. His species had learned to think in numbers, in statistics, in cold facts. Emotions clouded judgment. Attachment caused mistakes. But for humans, those emotions seemed to be their strength, not their weakness. Over the next few days, Calix made a decision. He would not just observe from a distance anymore. He would try to understand. Really understand. So he began talking to the crew, asking questions, listening to their stories. He found Katie in the engine room, covered in grease and looking exhausted. She was working on a damaged power conduit, her hands moving with practiced skill. "Can I ask you something?" Calix said. Katie did not look up. "Sure, hand me that wrench." He passed her the tool. "Why do you fight so hard? What drives humans to risk so much?" Katie laughed, though it sounded tired. "That's a big question. You want the simple answer or the complicated one?" "Both." She finally looked at him, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Simple answer?" "Because someone has to." "Complicated answer?" She gestured around the engine room. "My grandfather helped build this ship. He told me stories about Earth, about what it was like before we went to the stars. Humans have always fought, Calix. We fought nature. We fought each other. We fought diseases that tried to wipe us out. We survived ice ages and droughts and disasters. And you know what we learned?" "What?" "We learned that the only way to survive is together. When we work alone, we're weak. But when we work together, when we fight for each other, we're unstoppable." She turned back to her work. "That's not just a nice idea. It's written into our DNA. We're pack animals who learn to think. That makes us dangerous." Calix thought about that. Pack animals. He had studied Earth's history. Humans descended from primates, and before that, from even simpler creatures. They had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways. No natural armor, no natural weapons, just big brains and the ability to work together. He found Nicole in the training room, running her Marines through combat drills. Even after the battle, they were still training. "Still preparing. Why do you keep training?" Calix asked. "The battle is over." Nicole stopped the drill and walked over to him. "The battle is over. The war isn't. There will always be another threat, another fight. We train so we're ready, so we can protect people. But you already know how to fight. There's always more to learn, always ways to get better." She gestured to her Marines. "See that guy there? That's Sergeant Chris Hudson. He saved 6 people during the evacuation. You know why? Because he trained for exactly that situation. We practice rescue operations over and over until we can do them in our sleep. That training saved lives. Your species seems obsessed with preparation." Nicole smiled. "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's our motto. We've learned the hard way that peace doesn't last, so when we have it, we use that time to get ready for when it ends." Calix left the training room and wandered the corridors. He passed by the medical bay and saw Amy inside, talking to a patient. The patient was laughing at something she said. Even here, in a place of pain and injury, there was laughter. He found Danny in the pilot's ready room, studying navigation charts. The pilot looked up and grinned when he saw Calix. "Hey, scholar. Come to learn how to fly?"
"I do not think I could match your skill," Calix said.
"I watched you during the battle. You perform maneuvers that should not be possible." Danny shrugged. "When you grow up racing speeders through canyons for fun, you learn to push limits. Besides, possible is just a suggestion. You intentionally endanger yourself for entertainment? We call it living," Danny said. "Humans have this thing where we like to test ourselves. Push boundaries. See what we're capable of. Some people climb mountains. Some people dive to ocean depths. I fly ships in ways they weren't designed to be flown. He paused. It's not about the danger. It's about the challenge. About proving we can do the impossible. That word again. Impossible. Humans seem to hear that word as a challenge rather than a limitation. Later, Calyx was invited to what the humans called a memorial service. The entire crew gathered in the main hangar bay. Nathan stood at the front with the pictures of the 19 dead behind him. One by one he spoke about each person. Their life, their accomplishments, their dreams, their loved ones. When he finished, Lisa stepped forward. We stand here today to honor those who gave everything. They died so others could live. That's the highest calling a human can answer. We will never forget them. We will never forget what they gave us. The crew stood in silence for a long moment. Then slowly they began to share stories. Happy memories of the fallen. Jokes they had told. Times they had helped someone. It was not all sadness. There was laughter too, mixed with tears. Calyx watched and felt something strange in his chest. His people had memorial ceremonies too, but they were formal, brief. A name was added to a database. A record was updated. This was different. This was personal. Every human here was affected. Every human here mourned. After the service, Nathan found Calyx standing alone. You look troubled, Nathan said. I am trying to understand, Calyx admitted. Your species is so different from mine. From all the species I have studied, you feel so deeply. You care so much. How do you function? How do you make decisions when emotions are so strong? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Can I show you something? He led Calyx to his quarters. The room was small and simple, like all crew quarters on the ship. But on one wall there were pictures, humans of various ages all smiling. My family, Nathan explained. That's my wife, Laura. Those are my kids, Sophie and Max. They're back on Earth waiting for me to come home. He touched one picture gently. I think about them every day. When I make decisions that risk my life, I think about them. When I order my crew into danger, I think about their families too. Does that not make decisions more difficult? Yes, but it also makes them clearer. Nathan turned to face him. I fight because I love them. I risk my life because I want them to live in a safe galaxy. Every person on my crew has people they love. People they're fighting for. That's not a weakness. That's what makes us strong. I do not understand how emotion creates strength, Nathan smiled. Let me tell you about Earth, our home planet. It's a beautiful place, but it's also deadly. We had ice ages that nearly wiped us out. Diseases that killed millions. We fought wars that destroyed entire civilizations. By all logic, we should have gone extinct a dozen times over. But you did not. No, because when things got bad, we didn't give up. We didn't calculate the odds and decide survival was impossible. We felt fear, but we also felt hope. We felt despair, but we also felt determination. Those emotions pushed us to keep trying, to keep fighting, to keep surviving. Logic would have told our ancestors to give up. Emotion told them to keep going. Calyx thought about his own people. The Velkari had moderated their emotions centuries ago through genetic engineering. They had decided that emotions were inefficient, that they caused problems. And they had built a stable, peaceful civilization, but they had also become cautious, risk-averse. When faced with the choice between fighting and retreating, they chose retreat. When faced with sacrifice or safety, they chose safety. Humans chose differently. They chose to fight. They chose to sacrifice. They chose to care even when caring hurt. Your species evolved on a hostile world, Calyx said slowly. Mine did not. We evolved on a gentle planet with mild weather and few predators. We never had to fight to survive. We just had to cooperate and be patient. Different worlds, different lessons, Nathan agreed. But now we share a galaxy, and your way of thinking, your way of fighting, it challenges everything the Council has established. Most species follow the doctrine of preservation. Preserve the fleet. Preserve resources. Calculate acceptable losses, and that works when everyone follows the same rules, Nathan said. But the Zrektar don't care about rules. Neither do a lot of other threats out there. Someone needs to be willing to stand and fight even when the warning came at dawn, ship time. Calyx was in his quarters when the alarm sounded. He rushed to the bridge and found chaos. Every screen showed red markers. Hundreds of them, thousands. What is happening? He demanded. Lisa turned to him, her face pale. The Zrektar are back. And they brought everything they have. The view screen showed space filled with enemy vessels. Hive ships, cruisers, fighters, all bearing down on New Haven. This was not a raid or a test. This was an invasion fleet meant to wipe out the human presence in this sector completely. How many? Calyx asked, though he almost did not want to know. Over 2,000 ships, Kyle said quietly. We have 30. The math was simple and brutal. They could not win. Even with the Council reinforcements that were coming, they would not arrive in time. The Zrektar would overrun New Haven, kill everyone on the planet, and destroy the human fleet before help could arrive. Nathan stood at his command chair, his face carved from stone. Get me the other captains. Conference call. Now. Within minutes, the faces of the other human ship captains appeared on the screens. Calyx recognized some of them. Sam Hughes of the Pathfinder, which had been repaired just enough to fly. Captain Helen Wu of the Steadfast. Others he had not met. You've all seen the scans, Nathan said. We're looking at complete annihilation. The Council has ordered all ships to retreat. Preserve the fleet, they said. Live to fight another day. And the colonists? Helen asked. They're ordering evacuation, but there's no time. We'd get maybe 10,000 off the planet before the Zrektar arrive. 30,000 would die. Silence on the comm channels. Calyx could see the calculations running behind every captain's eyes. The smart choice was obvious. Retreat, save the ships. Regroup and come back later. It was what any logical species would do. We're not retreating, Sam said. Are we? No, Nathan said simply. We're not. Good, Helen said. Because I didn't sign up to run away from fights. One by one, the other captains agreed. They would stay. They would fight. They would buy time for as many evacuations as possible, even though they all knew how this would end. Calyx, Nathan said, turning to him. You need to leave. We're sending out all non-essential personnel on the last evacuation shuttle. That includes you. No, Calyx said. The word surprised him as much as it surprised the humans. I am an observer. I must observe until the end. You'll die. Perhaps. But I must see this. I must witness what you do here. The galaxy needs to know. Nathan studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Your choice. But stay out of the way. The next few hours were organized chaos. Every human ship prepared for battle. Evacuation shuttles ran continuously to the planet and back, each one crammed with civilians. The numbers ticked up slowly. 15,000 saved. 20,000. 25,000, but the Zrektar were coming. They would arrive before the evacuations finished. Amy found Calyx in the corridor. She pressed something into his hand. A small recording device. If we don't make it, she said, and you do, make sure people know what happened here. Make sure they know why we stayed. I will, Calyx promised, and tell them we weren't stupid. We knew the odds. We just decided that some things matter more than odds. The Zrektar fleet arrived like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the stars. They came in fast and aggressive, no longer cautious. They knew they had won. This was just cleanup. All ships defensive formation, Nathan ordered. We hold the line. We don't let a single Zrektar ship reach the planet until those shuttles are clear. Understood? Understood, came the chorus of replies. The battle began. It was nothing like the previous fights. This was not tactics or strategy. This was pure desperation. The human ships threw everything they had at the enemy, and it was not enough. It could never be enough. The Steadfast was the first to fall. Helen Wu's ship took devastating fire from multiple directions. Her last words over the comm were, keep fighting. Make it count. Then the ship exploded, taking dozens of Zrektar vessels with it. Shuttle status, Nathan demanded. 28,000 evacuated, Beth reported. 2,000 still on the planet. How long do we need? 15 minutes. Then we hold for 15 minutes. All ships tighten formation. Protect those shuttles at all costs. The defiant spirit shook as enemy fire pounded the shields. Katie's voice came over the comm, strained and desperate. Shields at 20%. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. I don't know how much longer we can take this. Just a little longer, Katie. Just a little longer. Another human ship died. Then another. The fleet was being torn apart. But they held the line. Not a single Zrektar ship got past them to the planet. Kyle was firing non-stop, his face set in concentration. Weapons overheating. We're running out of ammunition. Use everything. Missiles, torpedoes, the kitchen sink if you have to. Danny was performing miracles at the pilot station, dodging fire that should have destroyed them 10 times over. But even he could not dodge everything. The ship lurched as a blast got through. "Hull breach on the bridge," someone shouted. Emergency shields slammed into place, sealing the breach. But they were failing. The ship was failing. Everything was failing, and still they fought. Calyx gripped the railing, watching it all. He saw humans working with wounds that would have incapacitated any other species. He saw them keeping systems running that should have shut down. He saw them fighting when logic said they should surrender. 30 minutes, Lisa said quietly to Nathan. "We've held for 30 minutes against a fleet that should have overwhelmed us in 5. How many evacuated?" "All of them. Every single civilian is off the planet." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was something like peace there. "Then we've won. All ships, well done. You've done your duty. You've saved them all, Captain," Kyle said. "The Zrektar are pulling back." Everyone on the bridge froze. Calyx looked at the tactical display. It was true. The enemy fleet was withdrawing, pulling away from the human ships. "Why?" Lisa asked. "They have us. They could finish us right now." The answer came from an unexpected source. A communication channel opened and a Zrektar hive mind voice spoke. It was the first time the enemy had communicated with them directly. "We withdraw," the voice said, translated by the ship's computer. "We withdraw from this place. From all human territories. You have proven yourselves too costly to fight." "We beat them," Danny whispered. "We actually beat them." "No," Nathan said slowly. "We didn't beat them. We scared them," he was right. The Zrektar had not been defeated militarily. They still had overwhelming numbers. But they had watched humans fight far beyond any reasonable point. They had seen humans willing to die to protect their people. They had seen a determination that made no logical sense. And the hive mind, for all its intelligence, could not understand that. Could not counter it. Could not accept the losses that fighting such an enemy would require. So they left. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then someone laughed. Then someone else. Soon the whole bridge was celebrating, hugging each other, crying with relief. Calyx stood apart watching. Around him, humans were experiencing every emotion at once. Joy that they had survived. Grief for those they had lost. Pride in what they had accomplished. Relief that it was over. Nathan approached him. The captain looked exhausted, like he had aged years in the past few hours. "You stayed," Nathan said. "You could have left, but you stayed." "I had to see," Calyx said. "I had to understand." "And do you understand?" Calyx thought about everything he had witnessed. The battles, the sacrifices, the impossible victories, the humans who kept fighting when every rational calculation said they should quit. "Yes," he said slowly. "I think I finally do." Over the next few days, as repairs began and council ships finally arrived, Calyx worked on his final report. This would not be a simple observation log. This would be a testament, a warning, a revelation. He titled it, "Why the Stars Should Tremble." In it, he wrote everything, not just the facts and figures, but the truth behind them. He wrote about Nathan and his pictures of family, about Amy treating wounded while injured herself, about Katie keeping engines running through sheer will, about Danny flying impossible maneuvers, about Nicole leading Marines into danger to save civilians, about 19 humans who died and 40,000 who lived. He wrote about a species that evolved on a world that tried to kill them and learned to never give up, about pack hunters who developed intelligence and became something the galaxy had never seen, about a people who valued every single life, even when logic said some lives were not worth the cost. He wrote about emotions as a weapon, about love that made them fierce, about fear that made them careful, about hope that made them unstoppable. And he wrote about what this meant for the galaxy. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years through careful calculation and measured response, he wrote. "We have created a civilization based on logic, on preservation, on acceptable losses. It has served us well. We have been stable. We have been safe. We have been predictable. Humanity will end that stability, not through malice or aggression, but simply through being what they are. They do not calculate acceptable losses. They do not preserve their forces at the expense of individuals. They do not retreat when logic says they should. They fight for every person. They risk everything for those they care.